Okay, so you're wanting to take a deep dive today into
Uh-huh.
James 5, 7 to 11.
Looking for something fresh for your congregation.
Right. And you want
Okay.
something new, you want something you can
Something
use.
unique.
Yeah, exactly. And lucky for you, we've got a whole stack of sermons from Pastors AI,
Mm.
and they're all on James 5, 7 to 11.
It's amazing to me how these pastors can come up with the most creative illustrations,
Oh, yeah.
even secular ones,
I saw that.
to help people understand this passage.
One pastor even used Amazon Prime and Disney Plus
Oh, yeah.
to talk about impatience,
Brilliant. It's great.
because everyone can relate to that.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all been there. You're waiting for a package,
Mm-hmm.
or you're waiting for a movie to download, and it's just taking forever.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
definitely different than the good things come to those who wait kind of approach.
Yeah, for sure. But a lot of these pastors, they use that classic farmer image.
Right. The farmer analogy.
Yeah,
It's a classic for a reason, I guess.
yeah. But they all used it in slightly different ways.
Yeah. Some of them really focused on all the work the farmer has to do.
Like what?
The plowing and the planting and the tending.
Okay.
And they use that to show that patience isn't just sitting around and waiting for something to happen.
Right.
You've got to put in the work.
Exactly. You have to actively work towards the goal.
Yeah.
There's a process, and it takes time for anything to grow.
Mm-hmm.
One pastor said that a farmer can't just throw some seeds on the ground and then just expect a harvest.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of stuff they have to do in between.
Yeah, they have to tend to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important lesson for us,
Mm.
especially these days when everyone wants everything right now.
Oh, yeah. Instant gratification.
Exactly.
And it makes you think about spiritual growth, too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like you just show up at church once a week
Right.
and you're suddenly a perfect Christian.
Yeah, you don't just magically transform overnight,
You've got to be intentional about it.
You have to actively engage with your faith.
Yeah, reading your Bible and praying and serving others.
Mm-hmm. You have to work at it.
Yeah, exactly. It's all part of that spiritual development.
You're cultivating that fertile ground within yourself,
Oh, I like that.
where faith can take root and flourish.
Yes.
But it takes time, and we can't rush the process.
Right. And that brings us to that amazing Greek word.
Macrothumia.
Yes, macrothumia.
It's not just about waiting patiently. It's about having that long fuse.
Mm-hmm. That enduring spirit,
Yeah, the ability to weather any storm.
which we all need.
Absolutely. It's such a rich word.
Yeah.
English translations don't really do it justice.
No, they don't.
It's got so much more depth.
Mm-hmm.
One pastor pointed out that macrothumia is often used in the Bible to describe God's patience with us.
Oh, that's a good point. God, who is perfect and holy,
Yes.
he is so patient with us,
Mm-hmm.
even with all of our flaws and imperfections.
Yeah.
So if God can be that patient with us, shouldn't we at least try to extend that same grace and patience to other people?
Especially in the church.
Yes, especially with each other.
We're supposed to love and support one another.
Yeah, even when it's difficult.
It's not always easy, though.
No, it's not.
It's really hard sometimes.
These pastors were very honest about that.
Yeah, living out macrothumia every day is tough.
Yeah, especially in our culture,
Everything's so fast-paced.
Yeah, everyone wants everything right now.
Instant gratification.
Yeah.
One pastor compared it to burning your mouth on a Hot Pocket.
What?
Because you just couldn't wait for it to cool down.
Oh, that's a good one.
I thought it was a good analogy.
Yeah, we've all done that.
I know I have.
I'm sure most people listening have done that at some point.
At least once.
Yeah.
And that's why these secular illustrations work so well.
Yeah, they make those connections for us.
Between the Bible and our modern lives.
Yeah, and another pastor, I thought this was a good one. He talked about Ronald Wayne.
Ronald Wayne.
Yeah, he was a co-founder of Apple.
Oh, wow.
But he sold his shares really early on. Yeah, like for practically nothing because he was impatient.
He didn't think the company was going to take off or something.
Yeah, I guess he just wanted to get some quick cash.
He must regret that now.
Oh, I'm sure he does. Apple is one of the biggest companies in the world.
It is.
But it just shows you that impatience can have real consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to be willing to wait.
To play the long game.
Yeah, play the long game.
Trust the process and persevere.
Okay, so we've got farmers and Hot Pockets and Apple co-founders.
It's quite a mix.
What other gems did you dig up in these sermons?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
One pastor made a connection between James 5, 7 to 11 and the historical context.
You mean the persecution that those early Christians were facing?
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of them were going through really difficult circumstances.
Yeah, they were facing all kinds of trials and tribulations.
Yeah, and this pastor, he said that understanding the historical context can completely change how we read this passage.
Oh, really?
hmm
How?
Well, it's not just about being patient while waiting in line at the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's about having that same strength and resilience that enabled those early Christians to endure those really tough times.
To endure suffering.
Yes,
That's a powerful thought.
it is.
So it's not just about being passive. It's
Yeah.
about having that grit and determination to overcome challenges.
Exactly, to stay the course even when you feel like giving up.
That's a message that resonates with people today.
Oh, yeah,
We're all facing challenges in our lives.
right. Personal struggles,
Right.
financial worries.
Relationship issues.
Yeah, we've got global pandemics.
We all need that resilience.
And we need to learn how to endure well.
Yes, several pastors emphasize that.
Yeah.
One of them even quoted Tertullian, who called impatience the original sin.
Whoa, the original sin.
I know it's a strong statement.
Yeah, we usually think of, pride or disobedience
Right.
as the original sin.
But Tertullian makes a good point.
Yeah, when you think about it, impatience is all about wanting things our own way,
Yeah.
wanting our own timeline.
Instead of God's will and God's timing.
It's like saying, I know better than God what's best for me.
And I want it now.
Exactly.
So if you look at impatience that way,
As a rebellion against God,
yes, then it really changes how we see this passage in James.
it becomes about surrender,
Yes, trusting God's timing,
even when it's hard.
even when it doesn't make sense,
Mhm.
because his plan is perfect.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a really thought-provoking perspective.
It is.
So if we reframe impatience as this fundamental rebellion against God, then James 5:7-11 becomes less about just being nice and waiting our turn,
Right.
and more about surrendering to God's bigger plan.
Exactly.
And that's a powerful message.
It is.
And that brings us to another really interesting layer that these pastors explored.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they connected James 5:7-11 with other passages in the Bible.
I love that approach.
Yeah.
It's like weaving a tapestry of biblical wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. And they showed how patience is connected to so many other important themes. Like what?
Like hope and love and perseverance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there were some really insightful connections to Romans 8.18 and 1 Corinthians 13.
They didn't just throw those verses in there randomly.
No, they were very deliberate.
They wanted to deepen our understanding of what it means to wait well.
Yeah, and one pastor, he suggested that we should use those moments of frustration, like when we're stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult person.
We're waiting for something we really want.
Yeah, as opportunities to pray.
To pray for patience.
Yes.
To pray for the person who's annoying us.
Mhm.
To pray for God's will to be done.
Exactly.
That's a great way to reframe those situations.
It is. Instead of letting impatience consume us,
Right.
we can use those moments to connect with God.
And invite him into the situation.
Yes, and another pastor talked about the importance of setting realistic expectations,
Mhm.
recognizing that people aren't perfect,
Right.
and we're all going to make mistakes.
We all mess up sometimes.
And sometimes things just take time.
And that ties into another key theme.
Gratitude.
Yes, gratitude.
Yeah, focusing on the good things we have.
Instead of dwelling on the negative.
Yeah, because a lot of times our impatience comes from this sense of lack.
Like we're missing out on something.
Yeah, but when we cultivate gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
it shifts our focus to all the blessings we already have.
And it reminds us that God is at work in our lives,
Yes.
even when we can't see it.
Even when it feels like nothing is happening.
One pastor told this story about a woman who was praying for a husband for years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was starting to lose hope.
It's hard to keep hoping when it feels like nothing is changing.
It is, but she decided to start thanking God for all the good things in her life.
Like what?
Her health, her family, her friends, her job.
Okay.
And guess what?
Huh.
Not long after she shifted her focus to gratitude,
Hmm.
she met the man who would become her husband.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It is.
It really shows you the power of gratitude.
It does.
When we approach life with gratitude,
Yeah.
we open ourselves up to receive God's blessings.
In ways we might never have imagined.
Yeah. And it's not just about receiving blessings.
Right.
It's also about being a blessing to others.
How so?
Well, when we're patient with people,
Mhm.
when we give them the benefit of the doubt,
Right.
when we extend grace and forgiveness.
That's how we show God's love to the world.
Exactly. And it goes back to that idea that macrothumia is essential for healthy relationships.
Yeah.
If we're all just impatient with each other.
Snapping at each other and judging each other.
Yeah. Gossiping.
How can we possibly reflect God's love?
Yeah. It's impossible.
And that's why this passage in James is still so relevant today.
Even 2,000 years later.
It's a call to examine our hearts.
Yeah.
To confess our impatience.
To ask God to help us grow.
To cultivate the fruit of the Spirit in our lives. It's about understanding that patience isn't just a personal virtue.
Right.
It's a way of life.
A way of life that brings glory to God.
And makes the world a better place.
That's a powerful challenge.
It is.
But I think these pastors have given us some really practical tools.
Tools to help us put patience into practice.
Yes, and one of the things that really stood out to me was this idea of reframing patience.
Reframing patience.
Yeah, not as a burden that we have to grit our teeth and bear,
Right.
but as an invitation.
An invitation.
An invitation to a deeper intimacy with God.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because when we're impatient, we're essentially saying, God, I don't trust you.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't trust your timing.
I don't trust your plan.
But when we choose patience, we're choosing to align ourselves with God's will.
With his timing.
With his perfect peace.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It is.
So patience becomes a way of saying, God, I trust you.
Exactly.
I trust that you're working everything out for my good.
Even when I don't understand it.
It's a way of surrendering.
Yes, surrendering our will to his, aligning our hearts with his heartbeat.
And in that surrender, we find peace.
Yes, a peace that transcends our circumstances.
It's amazing.
It is, and it brings us full circle to Tertullian. And that idea of impatience is the original sin.
Yeah.
Because when we choose patience, we're choosing to realign ourselves with God.
We're returning to that state of trust and dependence.
That was broken in the Garden of Eden.
Right.
It's like we're saying, God, I'm not going to try to run my own life anymore. I'm going to let you be in control.
I'm going to trust your timing.
Yeah, even when it's hard.
I'm going to wait on. Yeah.
Because we know that your plans are always better than our own.
That's a message that I think everyone can connect with.
Yeah, I think so too.
Deep down, we all long for that peace.
That sense of being in sync with something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information all at once.
Okay.
Let's pause here.
Okay.
And pick back up in part 3.
Sounds good. And many of these pastors, they connected James 5:7-11 with other passages in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
To really illuminate this whole concept of patience.
I love when pastors do that.
Yeah.
It's like they're weaving this tapestry.
A tapestry.
Of biblical wisdom.
Yeah, showing how patience connects to all these other things.
Yeah, like hope and love and perseverance.
Right, and these connections, they weren't just random.
No, they were very intentional.
They were carefully chosen to help us understand what it really means to wait well.
Yeah, and one pastor even suggested that we should view those moments of frustration as opportunities to pray.
Interesting. What kind of moments?
You know, like when you're stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult person.
Oh, yeah, those moments.
Yeah, or when you're just waiting for something that you really want and it's taking forever.
Okay.
He said we should use those moments to pray.
To pray for what?
Well, to pray for patience, to pray for the person who's annoying you, to pray for God's will to be done.
That's a really practical way to look at it.
It is, instead of letting those feelings of impatience consume you, you can use those moments to connect with God.
And invite him into the situation?
Exactly. And another pastor talked about the importance of setting realistic expectations.
Realistic expectations.
Yeah, recognizing that people aren't perfect.
Right.
We're all going to make mistakes, and sometimes things just take time.
That's a good point.
And that ties into another key theme that emerged from these sermons.
What's that?
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Focusing on the good things in our lives rather than dwelling on the things that aren't going our way.
Because so often our impatience stems from a sense of lack.
Yeah, that feeling that we're missing out on something.
But when we cultivate gratitude, it shifts our focus.
All the blessings we already have.
It reminds us that God is at work in our lives.
Even when we can't see it.
Even when it feels like nothing is happening.
Right. And one pastor, he shared this story about a woman who was praying for a husband for years.
Oh, wow.
And she was starting to lose hope.
Yeah, it's hard to keep hoping when it feels like your prayers aren't being answered.
It is, but then she decided to start thanking God for all the good things in her life.
Like what kind of things?
Her health, her family, her friends, her job.
Okay.
And guess what?
What happened?
Not long after she shifted her focus to gratitude, she met the man who would become her husband.
Wow. That's an amazing story.
It is. It really shows you the power of gratitude.
It does.
When we approach life with gratitude, it's like we open ourselves up to receive God's blessings.
In ways we might never have imagined.
Exactly, and it's not just about receiving blessings.
Right.
It's also about being a blessing to others.
How so?
Well, when we're patient with people, when we give them the benefit of the doubt, when we extend grace and forgiveness, that's how we reflect God's love to the world.
And that brings us back to macrothumia
Yeah.
and how it's essential for healthy relationships.
If we're all just impatient with each other, constantly snapping and judging and gossiping,
Right.
how can we possibly be a reflection of God's love and grace?
That's impossible.
And that's why this passage in James is so relevant, even 2,000 years later.
It's a call to examine our hearts, to confess our impatience, and to ask God to help us cultivate this fruit of the Spirit in our lives.
It's about understanding that patience isn't just a personal virtue.
Right.
It's a way of life that brings glory to God and makes the world a better place.
It's a powerful challenge.
It is, but I think these pastors have given us some really practical tools to help us put patience into practice.
And one final takeaway that really resonated with me was this idea of reframing patience.
Reframing patience.
Yeah, not as a burden that we have to grit our teeth and bear,
Right.
but as an invitation.
An invitation.
An invitation to a deeper intimacy with God.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because when we're impatient, we're essentially saying, God, I don't trust.
That's
I don't trust your timing. I don't trust your plan.
But when we choose patience, we're choosing to align ourselves with God's will, with His timing, with His perfect peace.
It's a beautiful way to think about it.
So patience becomes a way of saying, God, I trust you,
I trust that you're working all things together for good.
even when I don't understand it.
It's a way of surrendering our will to His aligning our hearts with His heartbeat.
And in that surrender, we find peace.
A peace that transcends our circumstances.
That's amazing.
And it brings us full circle to Tertullian and that idea of impatience as the original sin.
Yeah.
Because when we choose patience, we're choosing to realign ourselves with God.
We're returning to that state of trust and dependence that was broken in the Garden of Eden.
It's like we're saying, God, I'm not going to try to run my own life anymore.
I'm going to let you be in control.
I'm going to trust your timing.
Even when it's hard.
I'm going to wait on you because I know that your plans are always better than my own. That's a message that I think everyone, regardless of their background or beliefs, can resonate with.
Yeah, I think so too.
Deep down, we all long for that peace, that sense of being in sync with something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
As we've been talking about all these different perspectives on James 5:7-11, one thing keeps coming back to me.
I know what you mean. It feels like all these pastors, even with their unique approaches, are circling around a really profound truth.
Yes, they're all pointing to this idea that patience isn't just about waiting for something.
It's about becoming someone.
Yes. It's about the transformation that takes place within us as we wait.
And that transformation isn't always comfortable. It often involves stretching us, challenging us, even breaking us down a bit.
Like refining gold in a fire.
Exactly. Think about that farmer in the analogy we keep coming back to. He doesn't just sit back and watch the crops grow.
No, he's out there working.
He has to till the soil, pull out the weeds, deal with pests, protect the plants from harsh weather.
It's hard work.
And in the same way, cultivating patience in our own lives requires effort, discipline, a willingness to endure some discomfort,
It's about learning to let go of our need for control
to trust God's timing.
and to find peace in the midst of uncertainty.
And that's where those connections to other scriptures become so powerful. Remember how those pastors kept linking James 5:7-11 with verses about hope, love, and perseverance?
Yes, they were showing us that patience isn't an isolated virtue.
It's interwoven with all these other qualities that are essential for living a truly Christian life.
Exactly. It's like patience is the thread that binds them all together.
That's what allows us to keep hoping even when things look bleak,
To keep loving even when we're hurt.
and to keep persevering even when we want to give up.
And that's why I think this idea of reframing patience as an invitation is so powerful.
It's not a chore. It's an opportunity for growth
To deepen our faith.
and to draw closer to God.
It's an invitation to experience that deep, abiding peace that surpasses all understanding. The kind of peace that can only be found in surrendering our will to God's.
So as you prepare to teach on James 5:7-11, I encourage you to keep this in mind.
Don't shy away from the challenges of patience. Embrace them as opportunities for growth and transformation.
Challenge your congregation to see patience not as a passive waiting game, but as an active pursuit.
Of a deeper, more fulfilling relationship with God.
Help them to understand that the rewards of patience are not always immediate.
But they are always worth waiting for.
Remind them that God is at work in their lives, even when they can't see it, even when it feels like nothing is happening.
Encourage them to find those practical ways to put patience into practice.
Whether it's through prayer or gratitude, or simply choosing to respond with kindness instead of anger.
And most importantly, point them to the ultimate example of patience, Jesus Christ.
Who endured the cross for the joy set before him, showing us that even in the face of unimaginable suffering, patience can lead to victory.
That's a powerful image to end on.
It is. And, even though this is just one small passage in the Bible, it's amazing how much depth and richness it contains.
Absolutely. It's like a tiny seed that, when planted in the fertile ground of our hearts and cultivated with patience, can grow into a mighty tree of faith.
So keep digging, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions.
And who knows? Maybe you'll uncover a brand new sermon illustration that blows everyone's minds.
And as always, we're here to help you along the way. Happy diving!